Okay, so I know I said my last video was my last video, but I couldn't resist breaking out my custom and modified models before I put the airport away for the season. It turns out, as I brought all of my custom models out, that my total is 28, which ironically is the same number of gates I have at this airport, so it's kind of neat that that worked out the way it did. So let's go over which ones I have. I'll start over with my commuters. The One of my largest fleets of my customization models are my ATRs from American Eagle. I have four ATR 42s, and then those two ATR 72s you see right here and at the end there. Those are both Gemini 200 models, and the reason I have those out is because I modified the props. I took those kind of weak six-bladed props off the Gemini uses on their ATRs now, and I put the custom four-bladed props that I made myself, the curved propellers, which I think look a lot better anyway. My four ATR 72s, my four ATR 42s. One of them here is the six-bladed 500th ATR. This one here is just the standard ATR, and each one has its own separate registration. There's the standard ATR getting loaded up right there. And then my last one is my Pride of the Virgin Islands ATR 42, the flag, Virgin Islands flag on the back. And my other two commuters I have over this terminal right now are my two Delta Connection South 340s. Those were both British Airways Waves of the City models, Herpa. And they both, again, I gave them each one its own registration. They were decals from Draw Decal. Most of these ones are actually from Draw Decal. So there's 455 extra Juliet, and then 452 extra Juliet on in the background there. And my last commuter prop that I have out here right now is my first of two, and the second one hasn't been made yet, but this was a Continental converted to United Express South 340. Like I said, the other one I still have in my closet. I haven't made that conversion yet, but I will eventually. Alright, then moving over to my RJs. I've got four as it stands right now, with a couple actually in the closet that I haven't converted yet as well. But I've got four of the Continental to United Express ERJ 145s. Those ones are pretty easy to modify. All you gotta do is strip the Express jet off the engine and swap out the Continental connection for the United Express. There's the fourth one over there. Alright. Then we get into my Frontier models. I've got one of each that stands right now, but I'm always on the lookout for some more CRJ 700s to convert. Those are probably the easiest ones of the three. The one I have so far is the Fox of the Fox CRJ 700. And next to that is my ERJ 190. That was a Herpa model. And that one was a little tricky because I had to paint the engine nacelles, and whenever I get to painting, I tend not to be as good as I am with applying decals and changing out liveries. So I try to pick models that require the least amount of painting as possible. Although that one came out pretty good, again, there's not as professional as you're going to see when you buy the Gemini or the professional companies that make these. That's Hamilton the Hummingbird livery. And then my Dash 8 Q400, it's the Mountain Lion livery. Again, the only painting I had to do that one was the engines, which came out just about the same as the ERJ did. Alright, and my last one is my American Eagle, ERJ 135. That one was a little trickier because that was a Star Alliance model as it started out of JC Wing Star Alliance, so I had to strip the entire livery off it and then repaint the tail from black to white. But once I got that, the decals went on again. They were decals for an ERJ 145, so I had to trim those down to make it work for this fuselage, but it tended to come out pretty good. Alright, those are all my RJs. And moving over to my narrow bodies. The most you'll see over here are my United 737s. I've got four as it stands right now, and all four were Continental models, Gemini 200s. I got three at once and one by, and then the fourth one I picked up a little later. I've got two 738s, one right here, one over on the other side, and two 737 700s. One there, and then one at gate 23. And my last Continental to United, this is a BMI Star Alliance model, just like the American Eagle one, but this one I got to keep some of the old livery. All I had to do was take off the BMI flags in the fuselage, put the Star Alliance on there, and then put the United logo underneath. For the decals on that one, since they don't make an ERJ Star Alliance decal set, I found one for CRJ 200, which is about the same size as the ERJ 145, so that worked for the windows. And then the little United banner underneath it was from a 1 to 400 scale United 757 decal set. So you kind of have to, some of these you have to mix and match to make it work the way you want it to. Alright, getting in my Delta ones. I've got my Delta 717, and that was probably one of my trickier ones to make, since I had to paint the entire underside of the fuselage with that the Delta blue. And like I said, whenever I have to get to painting, my painting skills are not as good as my stripping and applying decals. But I did the best I could, and that one came out, I thought, pretty well. And then, sure enough, as with a lot of my customs, about a month after I make them, Gemini tends to make their own anyway. So I've got a couple of those on order to complement this one, but at least the registration will be different. And I got my Gemini 737-700 on there only because I added the radar dome on the GPS dome to the top of the fuselage there. Otherwise, it's a standard one. Alright, getting another one of my more tricky ones was my Frontier A321. And again, about a month after I made this one, Gemini released theirs ones. And theirs, even though it's an owl themed one as well, which is kind of weird, it's a slightly different one, so at least this one still is unique, and it wasn't a complete copy of the later Gemini one. And I made that one about the same time I was making my Air Canada Rouge A319. That one was an Air Berlin model, and just like the A321, they were both Hogan models, so they don't come with antennas, so I had to add the antennas after I put all the decals on to make it look a little better. Like I said, I did the same thing for the A321. Alright, and then wrapping up my two here, I actually also like to swap out the US Airways Heritage liveries with the American ones now that they've merged together. So I got a couple, like the Piedmont one and the PSA one, and basically the only thing I did to those was strip off the US Airways one and then apply the American. Then on the PSA one, I actually did remove a lot of the US Airways logos on the winglets and the fuselage. On the Piedmont one, I tended to keep them, as you can see on the wing fence there, still has the US Airways. And it still has the Star Alliance logo just forward of the entryway door. I'm not going to strip into that, only because I don't think I'm going to be able to match that blue if I strip it off. Those are my 28 models, and here I talked about number 29. Just like my two US Airways livery ones, this is going to be, this one I don't think this ever was a US Airways one, but American has this one as well. So I took the America West jet A320, I stripped off the America West banner. I'm going to do the same thing to that one that I did to my two US Airways ones and add that American logo on the top. And that decal is on order. Probably in a couple of weeks I'll get that and then finish that model up. And that'll be number 29. And those are all my custom models that I have up to this point. And they're still coming. I'm still pumping them out as we go along here. Probably take a little break for, like I said, the Christmas season and start back up next year.